is going on, everyone? I'm Devin Ugland, and I'm here with my co-host Ronnie Flores, and you are watching the Ballislife original show, On the Rise. On this episode, we're going to take a closer look at one of the more intriguing 221 high school prospects in the country, Chet Holmgren of Minnehaha Academy. All right, Ronnie, why don't you give us the rundown on Chet Holmgren's high school career so far?
Yeah, Devin, I'm glad to do this again with you. This is very fun and exciting to take a deep dive in on Chet. Obviously, he's probably the best overall prospect in high school basketball. So, you got to keep that in mind if we talk about in this show strength and weaknesses. But as far as his high school career, he's a legitimate Mr. Basketball National Player of the Year candidate. As a junior, average 14.3 points per game, 9.9 rebounds, 4.9 blocks. Now, you might say, I thought he was the number one player in the country. Well, he played with Jalen Suggs, who had the ball a lot. He's a dominant guard. He's going to be one of the best players, and he is one of the best players in college basketball. He's going to be one of the best players in this draft. So it'd be very interesting. Some people say if Chet Holmgren was in this draft, meaning 221, he would go higher than Jalen Suggs. So that's how highly people think of Chet's long-term ability and his mobility and his agility as a 7-footer. So obviously the game that kind of stood out to me then last season, his junior year when Suggs was on the team, was, he had the 12-block performance against Sierra Canyon. They dominated the game. And, they went on to a 25-3 record and, 15 in the Fab 50. They're a great team. Now you say, how in the world, if you're more like an NBA guy or you like college and to see where guys are going into the NBA, you say, how in the world did these guys lose 3 games, Suggs and Holmgren? They wouldn't lose 3 games in college, but I think that's the beauty of the high school game. And I think it also shows the strength overall of Minnesota basketball. There's good teams in Minnesota, Devin. I think people think, Chet Holmgren is probably playing against some scrubs, kind of like a Zion Williamson thing down in South Carolina. I don't think that's the case. I think his numbers are pretty indicative of what he can do. And there's very good teams in Minnesota, much better than the average fan who's not in Minnesota would think. So coming into the senior, obviously we were dealing with COVID. This fall has been he didn't really get his summer to show what he can do, but he's one of the few top-rated prospects in this 221 class that really got to show what he can do in the fall ball. He was at the Pangos All-American Festival, and his travel teams, Sizzle, was able to play in some big games. So before he even got to his official high school season, which is on now in Minnesota, I think, Devin, is the game that you saw, that everybody saw, is against Imani Bates, and it kind of took Chet Holmgren like, wow, this guy can be a really special player. So I think that's got to be mentioned. It was kind of like a made-for-TV game against Yipsy Prep, which is Imani Bates's, where he goes to prep school. He had 31 points, 12 rebounds, 6 blocks, 78-71 win. Really, to be blunt, I think he outplayed Imani, kind of put himself out there. And now currently the Red Hawks, which is Minnehaha Academy, the regular high school team, is 4-0 and they're just coming off a game against IMG Academy. So I think a lot of people have gotten to see Chet, and it's not hard to see that he's the best overall prospect in the high school game.
All right, we're going to jump into the breakdown of Chet Holmgren's game right now. We have some notes here that we, came up with from watching various games, whether it was the fall, the winter, or, the most recent game against IMG Academy. And I'm going to jump into my strengths right now as far as Chet Holmgren's game. So most people, when they watch high school, college, NBA basketball, they're focused solely on the offensive end and what a player can do, scoring the basketball, creating opportunities for teammates, right? I think Chet Holmgren's biggest strength and what's going to translate best to the NBA and college levels is his defensive presence.
Sure.
He's the best shot blocker in the country right now, no doubt about it. His instincts are top of the line. He uses his length well. He's a quick twitch athlete. He gets off the floor quickly for his first and second jumps. He changes shots around the basket when he contests. He just has all those little, knacks about, where the ball is, where the next pass is going, and has that, quick and poignant reaction time to getting back, if he gets out of position, getting back and, pinning a shot off the basket.
Sure.
But outside of his shot blocking, he can also kind of step out on the perimeter and switch onto guards and contain guards in the ball screen action because he's so versatile and he has really good lateral speed and he's mobile and he's coordinated. But transitioning into offense, Ronnie, I think what most people see and are intrigued by, and why people call him, the quote unquote unicorn,
Sure.
is his ability to shoot the basketball to the 3-point line at 7 feet tall, and kind of be a guy who can, rebound the defensive glass, lead the break, and use his passing IQ and ball skills to distribute to teammates and kind of act in that point forward role.
Yeah, like a quasi point forward. Yep.
Right. And I think one of the things that's not given enough credit for Chet in his game is how he changes ends of the floor in transition. How he gets out and runs when he's not leading the break, and establishes deep position early, or hits a trail three, or sets a trail pick and rolls to the basket for a dunk. I think those little ins and outs and that little IQ stuff that he has like that, Ronnie, and those skills are what's really intriguing about him. Let's jump into your strengths. What do you like about Chet?
Yeah, as far as the strengths, I'm with you there. His best strength is his defensive ability. That's overall. Now, I think I'll get into that in a minute. Though I wanted to bring a point that you made up.
Okay.
About his offensive strengths, and we talk a lot about guys, in the modern NBA, in modern basketball, being able to face the basket, stretch fours, and guys that are post players, and they have to be able to do that and do that pretty well. And I think many times when we talk about some of those players, it's like gimmicky. We like to say, I'll give you an example, and it's nothing against him because he's a great player. It's Evan Mobley, right? He can handle the ball a little bit. Yeah, that's it complements his game, but it doesn't. He's good without it. That part of his game is great, but he's very good without it, and he could potentially be the number one pick without that part of the game, just by his size, his defensive ability, and whatnot. So, but with Chet, it really is not a gimmick. Like, it actually helps his game. Like, it actually makes the defense work. It makes him get away from the basket. He can dribble a bit. He can go behind the back, make a nice play on the like on a 3-on-2 or 2-on-1, he's going to make the right play. It's not going to be awkward, and he can shoot, and he can shoot it pretty deep. So I think that's kind of what, like you said, what we see in a new age player, what we want to see in a complete big man. And then when you go back to his defensive abilities, yeah, there's a few guys that can go get shot blocks like him. Maybe Moussa Diabate from IMG Academy, like you said, they just played in a big game. But when I see that Chet is the best at is being patient. He kind of even lulls defenders and we're like, wait a minute, he can't get to this one. And then he just has the right timing and the right positioning to get the block. Not always flashy, just makes the play, keeps it in bounds. And now he's headed the other way to help his team out. So I think that, he doesn't go for cheap pump fakes. Obviously, everybody can get out of position once in a while with a great ball fake or a pump fake, but not too often with Chet. He can get the ball on his weak side with either hand. He can get him with both hands. He doesn't have to make the spectacular play, but he makes the play, the right play, and he's making it all the time consistently. I mean, it got to it almost to be a joke, really, at that Pangos All-American Festival. Me and Frank Burleson were keeping track of his blocks, and we're like, 9. Okay, that's 10, 11, 12. And like you said, it was against other top 40 to 50 players from around the country, those type of level players, and still didn't make a difference. They were trying to challenge him. And I think that's the beauty of him. When you look at it, sometimes when you look at a shot blocker, you say, man, I'm just going to stay away from him. And obviously that creates a scenario where a guy gets less shot blocks because people are scared of him. I think with Chet, the beauty of it is he can lull, for whatever reason, he lulls offensive players to think they have an opening, and bam, he just gets it. And it's really a unique and skill that I have, and not very many guys have it.
Yeah, I think just to close out the strengths here, Ronnie, what you pointed out about his ability to lull guys to sleep and, make them think that they can finish in the paint over top of him. And then all of a sudden he's up, slapping it off the backboard. But to get even further into his shot blocking, and what you said, another point you made that I like was he keeps the shot blocks in play. There's a lot of guys who like to smack it out of bounds and, flex or screen after it.
And the guys who smack it out of bounds don't get that many shot blocks.
Right, exactly. So he keeps it in play and starts a fast break the other way, and I think that's important. All right, Ronnie, we're going to jump into the areas of improvement with Chet Holmgren. We usually say weaknesses on this show, Ronnie, but I don't think there's much of a weakness in his game.
Sure.
And there's no glaring weakness for me in his offensive or defensive skill sets. He's versatile. He just has that natural ability to do like a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
And what I want to see over the next 2 years, as he graduates high school, goes to college for 1 year potentially, or G League, who knows what he's thinking. But I want to see how his body develops and what he looks like coming out of college into the NBA draft in 222.
Sure.
He's in that 190-pound range at 7 feet tall, and a lot of people are like, damn, this guy's so skinny, and he looks frail, looks like he's going to get hurt. But I think he doesn't get enough credit for being as strong as he is, or as durable as he is at his size.
Sure.
But I would like to see him get up to that 210 pound range. But I don't think size wise,
I don't think that's a big detriment.
Right. I think based on,
it's going to come naturally.
Yeah, size wise, I think with his skill set, I think it's not a super huge red flag.
No.
If I could give one piece of advice, I would this is a big ask, Ronnie, but I would say watch a lot of Dirk Nowitzki film and start operating in that mid post level, because at the NBA level, there's so much spacing and that mid post is wide open. And Dirk took advantage of that with that, 1-footed
high arcing
jumper,
high
arcing jumper. That's, that's part of the game that I think Chet needs to add to his game, is that kind of mid-level back to the basket, whether it's a, spin to the baseline and finish, or a fadeaway jumper. That's going to be something at the NBA level that's going to allow him to get easy points, and then also become a guy who can distribute the basketball to shooters, draw double teams, draw triple teams, and find cutters. I think that's going to be really important for him. And one more thing I'd like to see, Ronnie, is just, in the painted area, just have a couple more post moves, right? A couple more true back to the basket moves on the block, a la Hakeem Olajuwon. Obviously, there's a few guys who are as dominant or skilled or savvy as Hakeem Olajuwon was in the paint, or with his back to the basket. But I think mid-range, mid-post, some kind of move there, whether it's a face-up J off the glass like Tim Duncan, or a fadeaway like Dirk, and then some more back to the basket stuff. Ronnie, I'm going to throw it to you. Give me your areas of improvement for Chet.
Yeah, for Chet's improvement, again, like you mentioned, we're talking about the best prospect in high school basketball. Obviously, you mentioned his strength, so I'm not going to go into that too much, because the shot blocking won't be as common. Obviously, you don't block as many shots in the NBA that you do in high school, but it's still going to be there. I think for me, if he's not going to relish the banging, like you said, if he's only 200, 205 in that mold, can he consistently stay in front of his man, the four men he'd face if he's not a true, banger inside player? I think his game is good enough that it doesn't matter. Like you said, I think people tend to crowd him now, especially in the high school setting. They're going to crowd him. Obviously, he's big, he's tall. They know he's the best player on the court. So, like you say, he doesn't have much room to operate. I think he'll have more room to operate, and that'll elevate his game, like you said, once he develops and keeps working on that aspect of the game. And I'm confident he can and has the work ethic. He loves to play, so that doesn't seem to be a problem. And the only thing I do see is, how good is he back to the basket? Because we talked about his ball handling, and we talked about his fake game. Devin, sometimes a little concerned with some of these guys. Is it just overused? Is it like do they do it too much, where it's like, dude, just get in the post and dominate where you can? So I hope that isn't the case with him. I don't think it will be. But again, like you said, if it's something where he just kind of stays on the thin end, he may develop into that type of player, and then he's going to have to guard a different type of player every night in the NBA. Sure. So that's very minute. We're kind of going micro, but that would be my areas of concern or improvements for Chet.
Yeah, and just to round this out, Ronnie, you pointed out, the physicality of the game is much different than it was in the 80s and 90s now. I mean, there's a lot of, they like to hear the term freedom of movement, and a lot of whistles on ticky-tack stuff. So I don't think that the weight is going to play much of a factor in his development as an NBA player. Okay, Ronnie, we're going to jump now into our future forecasts and give some comparables as far as players that, that Chet Holmgren reminds us of, and then where we think he's potentially going to land at the college level and how he's going to do at the spot that you and I pick. We both pick the same. So how he's going to do at that spot. As far as comparables go, Ronnie, you hear a lot of the Porzingis comparison. And I think modern day NBA, I think that makes sense. I think it's fair. Porzingis is a 7-3. I mean, set shooting, 3-point shooting, perimeter shooting maven, right? I mean, he can stroke it from three. I think Chet might have a little bit more quick twitch in him as far as athleticism, a little bit more ball skills off the bounce. But Porzingis is a pretty good shot blocker too, Ronnie. He's averaging 2 blocks a game per game in his NBA career. And I don't think he gets enough credit for how good of a rim protector he is. A couple other names that you see, these are high ceiling names, Ronnie. Sure. And it's Kevin Durant and Kevin Garnett. I mean, you can see those things. You can see why people would bring that up because of the body type and operating on the perimeter. And with Garnett, he was a great shot blocker and rebounder. Durant, not so much of a shot blocking guy, but defensively, Kevin Garnett. Offensively, Kevin Durant a little bit. I mean, those are two Hall of Fame.
Wow. Now, Devin, if he combines with those two guys, he'd be one of the best players of all time.
So I was just about to say, how I feel about comparing high school players to Hall of Fame NBA players. So that's just what I see, and I get it. Like we went through this with our last show with Sharif Cooper and Chris Paul. I get it. Here's where this is a name I'm going to throw out to you, Ronnie, that I think makes the most sense right now. A more offensively skilled, talented version of Marcus Camby.
Yeah, I like that. That's great. And people might say, "Oh, Marcus Camby, guys, he was the number 2 pick of the draft, and he had a long career,
very long career."
Yeah, and he's a great, thin player, 6'11", can get it done inside, develop the shot, and actually, I would say Holmgren coming into the college game, meaning Camby coming out of high school in 1993 out of Hartford, Connecticut. Chet is more advanced, and
he is more advanced.
A good start.
He's more advanced offensively. And I think I like the comparison standpoint with Marcus Camby is because defensively they're very similar and they do a lot of the same things, a lot of the same movements, same body type. And that's how he's going to make an early impact at the NBA level is that, high level rim protecting, rebounding, getting the ball out and running in transition. That's what Marcus Camby did. A couple other names that I'm going to throw out here, Ronnie, more, new age names that some of our viewers can understand and put faces to. Rudy Gobert defensively, obviously the best shot blocker in the league. Him and Anthony Davis, 2 best shot blockers in the NBA. And then from a face-up skill set, ball skills, shooting ability standpoint, Karl Anthony Towns. Towns obviously much more strong, much more well built as far as his upper body goes and his lower body as well. I mean,
he's a big boy.
He's like a what do you call one of those? The sequoia tree, right? He's just like big dude. And then, at a college level comparison, he's very similar to Anthony Davis at Kentucky, honestly.
Yeah. Anthony Davis, obviously, that's a comparison I like kind of right away. Obviously, Davis kind of late bloomer. I think Chet is more enamored as a shot blocker in high school than AD was. AD was a McDonald's All-American, he's top 3 player, all that. We all know about his elevation quickly to number 1 in the country as he grew. And he just didn't play on that great of a high school team. And you could see his shot blocking prowess, but it wasn't on full display like Chet's was. So, those are great comparison. Those are, from Chris Porzingis, if he can average 18 points a game like Porzingis does for Dallas. You mentioned Marcus Camby, which is, I think, a terrific comparison, one I wouldn't think of, but what he did for the Knicks with the shooters they had around him and they got to the NBA Finals, and what he did for Denver too, when Denver had a pretty good team. Marcus was a big part of that. So I'm going to take it in my comparisons to that same 93 class, because Marcus was kind of coming in from the 20s into the teens, trying to work his way up, and I think John Calipari helped him do that at UMass. The guy who was near the top there in that class was Rasheed Wallace. If you go to our ballislife.com database, look at the 93 class, Rasheed Wallace was ranked number 3 by Bob Gibbons and 3 by Hoops. So he's number 3 in both. He played in all the major events. And, Rasheed was a shot blocker in high school. His high school coach, Bill Ellerby, wanted him on the post. He could run the floor like our guy Chet. However, you can see in the All-Star games and as he was going to North Carolina that he was starting, he can shoot a little bit. Rasheed could shoot the college 3. At the end, it was 19.9. He can shoot it a bit. And I remember seeing him in the round ball in the McDonald's a little bit, and he struggled with the physicality, but he can shoot he can really shoot the jumper, and it's something he showed later on. And obviously that really helped him in Detroit. And that's kind of, I think, the player that I see Chet being a little bit like of the certain things that Rasheed can do in Detroit: turn around, face up, block a shot here. Obviously Rasheed wasn't a 4 or 5 blocks a game guy, but he's more like a two blocks a game, maybe. So I really like that comparison, which is kind of a hybrid of that Camby comparison. Brandon Wright, who was the number 3 player in his class, in that Kevin Durant, Greg Oden class. Obviously, we talked about that a lot of times. Kevin Durant and Oden at the top of that class, and Brandon Wright, who had a pretty good NBA career, thin, long, could block a little bit of shots. I think Chet has a bigger upside than Brandon. Watching both of them, coming into college. I'll give you a little bit older one, and this is on the high end. And then, like I said, the Rasheed is the kind of one I like. And we say, Rasheed is a top 3 player in his class, national player of the year by some people coming into North Carolina. So I think that's comparable and comparable and realistic. On the high end, I see Ralph Sampson, who was a once in a generational type talent coming into college. It was a big recruiting thing for him to go to Virginia over Kentucky. And Ralph would have been the number 1 pick in all the 4 drafts that he was eligible for, basically, and he could have gone out of high school. He was this 7'3" guy who can dribble between the legs. In other words, what Ralph did then, it was like, whoa, what is this guy doing at 7'3"? But it would be celebrated. Now, people would understand, like, kind of what we see with Chet. It would be a positive. I don't think sometimes people think, well, Ralph's supposed to be down low banging, and he was thin. He was a thin guy, and he totally delivered. He was a 3-time Naismith player there in college. Obviously, Chet won't be in college that long as Ralph was. Ralph was obviously a household name, even at Virginia. People across the country, everybody knew who he was because of that notoriety and how long he stayed in college. And he could have been the number 1 pick in any of those drafts, which would have been 80, 81, 82, 83. He would have been the number 1 pick in any of those drafts. Right. Over Mark Aguirre, over Joe Barry Carroll, over Isaiah Thomas, over James Worthy. He would have been the number 1 pick. So that's a high ceiling right there, because obviously Ralph was an all-star right away. And I just think that, with Chet being a number 1 player type, that's going to be thrown out there. So, Porzingis obviously has come along, and if he can produce like that, and on the high end, if he could be kind of like that, what Sampson did at Virginia, I think he's going to be one hell of a player at the next level and in the NBA after a year.
Okay, so in your brain, you always operate like 1960, and then you come into recent times, sure, which is why Ralph Sampson and Rasheed Wallace are your 2 guys. When I was watching Rasheed Wallace, Ronnie, it was kind of when he became that pick and pop, original stretch 4 type player.
Yeah, later on.
NBA level, right?
Yeah.
And I didn't know about his shot blocking prowess, so it's good to have that take. If you had to throw out a couple names, newer or more recent names who you could, see a little bit of Chet Holmgren in, who would those be for our viewers who might not know what Ralph Sampson did at Virginia?
Yeah. I think, the 2 guys I think of, again, this is just compares both body, what they can do. Again, I expect Chet to be a little bit more complete. It would be like a Perry Jones who played at Baylor. It was supposed to be like had a body, run the floor. Bull, with Bull's tall, can shoot a little bit. Bull kind of gives you a tease of what people want to see from Chet. He has these moments. Bull's a tease, and I don't expect Chet to be a tease, but those are the type of guys I see. And then I do like the Porzingis comparison. And obviously, I'm not going to sit there and compare him to AD, because I don't know if he's going to – obviously, I don't know if he's going to be one of the 3 or 4 best players in the NBA. But you see those type of guys. So I think if he can take a little bit of the Rasheed Wallace of what he does, pick and pop. Obviously, you want him to block shots at a high level like a Miles Turner. And then, he kind of has, he can do a little bit better, I think, than what Bull people think Bull can do. I think you're going to have a hell of a player regardless, because I think he comes to play every night. He likes to compete. And that's what I see the most about Chet that I like is he kind of was in the, so maybe he's the second best player in this class. Maybe he's 2 or 3. He's kind of really took it up a notch. And I think it showed in that Imani Bates game.
For sure. He's a gamer, Ron. He's one of those guys who is going to show up, who's going to play with the 100% energy and be a guy who isn't afraid of big games and, the limelight and big crowds and things like that. So I think that confidence level that he's developed and kind of the chip that he plays with is going to be great for him on the NBA level. Now let's transition into a little bit of his college game and where we think he's going to go. Ronnie, I think this one is pretty
dialed in.
Consensus. It's dialed in. It's consensus for me and you. It's consensus for a lot of people across the country. We both think Chet Holmgren's going to Gonzaga. For me, why I think that he's going there is it's just from a system standpoint, development, transferable style of play. Gonzaga is kind of that no-brainer pick. As you can see, Jalen Suggs is currently the Gonzaga point guard, and he's probably going to go, top 4 in the 221 NBA draft. And they were obviously high school teammates, so there's already that level of connection and trust to the coaching staff. So he'll be there a year, Ronnie. He'll get a better grasp of kind of the intricacies of the game, learn a little bit more of the adapt to the speed a little bit more.
Better athletes, better players all around.
Better athletes, stronger players. He's going to adapt a little bit more. But after 6 months, Ronnie, in Spokane, Washington, Chet Holmgren will be on his way to whoever has the number 1 pick in the 220 NBA draft.
Yeah, and like you said, 1 year later, that'd be pretty interesting and amazing. My take on where he's going to fit on college is simple. Devin, if you're going the college route, why would you go anywhere else right now if you're a big man than Gonzaga?
Yeah,
it's that simple. It's the best, I guess, the surefire place to go for development. Against short-term development, it's not like he's going to be there 3 or 4 years. So I think he's going to fit best there. Like you said, his old high school buddy is going to be gone. So just as we close out this show of On the Rise, I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit. Let's say Chet can go straight from high school to the NBA draft right now. So two-tier question: does he go higher in Jalen, and where does he go with this crop of players that are eligible for the 221 draft in this draft if he was eligible?
Okay, I think earlier I Freudian slipped and said he's going to be eligible for the 221 NBA draft.
Yeah.
After 1 year at Gonzaga. So, hey, maybe I was onto something there. Who knows if that's going to happen? But if this is a huge if Chet Holmgren can go into the NBA draft in 221, which will be this summer, will he be the best player in that draft? Right now, number 1, Ronnie, I have Evan Mobley going number 1.
Sure.
So, I mean, yeah, I would probably take him number 1 if I had Evan Mobley number 1. Chet Holmgren is similar to Evan Mobley defensively, but maybe has a little bit more consistent of a 3-point shooting stroke and is probably has a tighter handle and has, better creating ability off the bounce at 7 feet tall. So if I had Evan Mobley going number 1 overall in the 221 draft and Chet Holmgren becomes eligible somehow for the 221 draft, I got to go Chet. So then you look at my big board. It's going to come out on ballislife.com over the next couple of weeks. I think I like let's say Chet's eligible. Okay.
Sure.
Chet, Evan, Cade Cunningham, Jalen Suggs 4. So yes, he's going higher than his high school teammate.
Yeah.
And then number 5, Jalen Green or Jonathan Kuminga, because we don't know what the G League Ignite's going to be like. The G League bubble is starting soon, and I'm really interested to see what that looks like. Ronnie, before we go, since you put me on the spot, I got to put you on the spot. Is Chet Holmgren eligible for the 221 draft? Are you drafting him number 1?
I think I'm not drafting number 1.
No.
I think I'm going to go Cade and or Evan, depending on what I like and what I need. And then I just think I think their body work is shown that they are that good and deserving. Not like either one of them is wrong. I think like I said in the Sharif Cooper show is that this is a draft of need a bit. I don't think you can go wrong. If you need a point guard, you have to take a look at Suggs. Can you trade? Do you have the balls to trade down and get an asset and get the guy you still want? There's a lot of teams have messed that up recently. They just go, I got to get the player that's the highest rated on everybody's board. No, get the player you want. I think this is a draft you want. If you need a big man, you look at Evan and say, that's what I need. Obviously, if Chet was available, you look at him too, but you got to say, hey, I'm going to take Evan. Or does a team really want Cade? We can slip down. Let's trade down to 2 or 3 and we get another, later draft pick or something, or get something in it to get that. But that's pretty risky and ballsy. So you gotta kind of go with, I think, sometimes the best player available. And I do right now. I'm going to say, as of today, as we make this On the Rise, is I'm going to say Cade Cunningham.
Okay, I think that's fair. I think any of those three guys, if Chet Holmgren's available, Chet, Evan, Cade are kind of the consensus top three, players who could be potentially available for the 221 draft. And I think another big point that might scare off NBA teams, Ronnie, is the lack of evaluation time that they had of Chet Holmgren over the summer, fall, and winter. And now we're heading, we're in the winter right now, heading into the spring. We're already in February, and it's still, they only played 4 high school games his senior year so far. So
yeah,
that lack of exposure, lack of, game film to be able to evaluate at the NBA level might scare some teams away.
Yeah. And I think that's perfect. That's why he's going to go to college, and he's going to have these guys gone already to the NBA, and he'll slide right in there and and have a very good chance to be the number 1 pick in 222. So, that's great. Obviously, we're talking again about the, premier prospect in the country, and it's going to be exciting to see how he closes this season, to see if, God willing, we have a McDonald's game and those type of things. And if he can kind of prove and show that, he is production wise and not just prospect wise, the best player in the country.
No doubt, Ronnie. All right, everybody, that's going to do it for our Chet Holmgren episode of On the Rise, presented by Ballislife. Make sure you head to ballislife.com, check out our latest content. And while you're there, click the shop.ballislife.com icon in the top right. Check out our latest drops of gear. And head to SoundCloud, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and check out the In the Paint Show and all the other great podcasts on the Ballislife Podcast Network. But until the next On the Rise, Ronnie and Devin are signing off.
What's up, Ballislife fam? Thanks for watching this video. If you want to support the movement, make sure you check out the product listing below this video and cop some of this merch.